everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. Thank you for being here. If you are interested in checking out any of the awesome shows that UPRN has, please head to their website. It is uprntalkradio.com. Follow them on all of their social medias. And if you are enjoying what Spirit Switchboard has to offer, please take a second to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell button to be notified when we're going live on YouTube. That would be greatly appreciated. Sending out a happy New Year to everybody. I hope everybody had a safe and happy New Year. My New Year was pretty quiet, I have to say. It was pretty normal. Dogs and I were probably asleep before 9:30. This is how things roll around here. And then this week we had a pretty, it was a fun week for me because I've had my granddaughter and she's 4. So there's nothing like a little one, right? Hanging out with you. Brings all the magic into the holidays, and she's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Hi, James. Thanks for being here. Today's guest, I'm going to bring her. Oh, there. Hello, Ryan Jones. If you want the link, I can send it to you if you want to pop on to. Hi, Julie. Thanks for being here. I'm going to bring our guest out. I'm going to let him do a lot of explaining about his background. There's so much to unpack that I know that this 2 hours is going to fly by. So remote viewer, medium. I'm going to add in researcher. We'll see how he feels about adding that to his list of hats that he wears. Paranormal investigator and owner of the cabin on 360, Dennis Estlock. Hi, Dennis.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. Hi, Virginia. Oh, that's okay, Ryan. We'll have you on another time.
Yeah. Ryan, I hope you're safe, brother. I know we got some rain moving into the area. Dumb question, but in the chat, does it show everything I typed 3 times, or is it only on my screen that it's acting silly?
Yeah, no, it is repeating. It's showing
nice.
up.
I only typed that once. I swear I don't repeat myself that bad. But as you know, Carolyn, I was having issues prior to being brought in anyway. I'm like, well, it's going to work. It's either going to go good or it's going to go bad. Either way, it's going to be fun.
Well, if it goes, we're not even going to say bad. We're going to say it potentially goes sideways. And if it goes sideways, we just need to make it funny and make sure that it's all recorded at the same time.
Yeah, there is that.
We just roll with it if we need to. Hi, Anne. Thank you for being here. Virginia, thank you. Thank you for being here. There is so much. So I had the opportunity to hang out with Ryan and Rhonda on the freaking awesome paranormal show. And, Ryan had suggested I have you on. I reached out and you accepted right away. So I appreciate you taking the time out of the holiday season to come on and chat about your history and the property. Originally we had discussed talking about the property, but there's some questions I have leading up to the property that are more you focused.
Kind of figured that one out.
Yeah.
I'm a researcher, and I don't know how many hats I wear. I haven't figured out what I want to be when I grow up. I have figured out that I refuse to grow up. I'm forced to grow old, but I'll be damned if I'm going to grow up.
So, but I think that's a big part of being a medium and sensitive is having a sense of play and a sense of humor and having balance. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll grow up either.
Yeah, it is not what they led us to believe when we were teenagers. I get to come and go as I please. I'll do whatever I want. Light strikes, and you're like, what happened? But yeah, hey. Hi, Sandra. Welcome aboard from Kelowna, British Columbia. Nice.
Yeah. And Sandy Kordick is chiming in from Prince Edward Island. James the Wiz, he's up here. James Grar is coming from Washington. So we've got people from all over the place.
It is. It's ironic how much things go full circle. You mentioned that I'm a medium, which I've been doing that for many years, and I got invited out. This has been probably 9 years ago to Chicago to go speak at GhostCon. Hey, Howie. And Ursula Bielski was running GhostCon at that time, and it was a huge event. I had a great time out there. Well, at the end of my presentation, I met a young lady that had traveled down from Canada. Unfortunately, I don't know what province or where in Canada she was from. We had, gosh, I don't know, 2-minute conversation. Hey, that was a great presentation. I enjoyed what you had to say, et cetera, et cetera. That kind of thing. And she messaged me about 6 months later, and she said, so I watched you in Chicago, and you said you can connect to loved ones. Is that true? I went, yeah. And I didn't tell her what I saw immediately, which was a young man that presented to me in his death state. He was a burn victim. But I expressed to her that, I'll tell you, first thing I get is it feels like my whole body's on fire. And her response back was, oh shit, really? Yeah. But this young man that's presented himself to me wants me to tell you that he is very sorry he left you and the 3 kids behind. He explained to me why and how and all of that as far as his passing. And She said, that gives me so much comfort just to know that. And then she asked me, what did he think of the gift the kids gave him? And I laugh because I see him dancing and laughing hysterically, saying, there's so much candy, there's so much candy. It doesn't mean a thing to me. It doesn't make logic to me, but I just gave him a message that he was sharing with me. And she's like, that makes sense because all 3 kids put a bag of Werther's Originals in his casket. That was his favorite candy. I said, okay, well, that makes perfect sense then.
Right.
And then she said, what did he think of the gift I gave him? Now, at this point, he is dancing and holding his ring finger up, and I see a shiny black ring, and he's singing, if you liked it, you would put a ring on it. So I share that with her, and right off the bat, the response was, I did. So I'm trying to figure this out at this point. And she says, we had picked our rings. We hadn't gotten married, but we had black tungsten rings, and I put his on his finger in the casket. Said, okay, so he's acknowledging having received it. But that was one of my first instances dealing with Canada. And here I am with, looks like a whole chat room full of Canadians.
Yeah, so, the chat room's pretty far and wide, and our listenership is international. But there's a lovely and beautiful following from Canada for sure, and that's a great experience that you had, and that's wonderful. You were able to provide peace to her. We can't provide closure for people necessarily, but we can give them moments of peace and connection.
Yeah, and we can give a little bit of comfort. Like with this one, he ran back into a burning structure. Hey, Rhonda.
Hey, Rhonda.
Hey, Kim.
Sage. Hello.
But he had run back into the burning structure because he saw his grandfather in there. And his grandfather had passed about 1.5 years earlier. And he thought this was going to be the end of the structure. He's not going to see his grandfather again. Little did he know grandfather was there to take him home. But
what a powerful, that's a lot.
That was one of those where you get done with that connection and you just, like, I logged out and I just kind of sat back for a minute and went, okay, let's go get on some earth. So I went out and took to my knees just to ground myself. And for lack of better terms, get my poop in a group.
Right. And do you feel things physically too?
Yeah.
So is it a see, hear, feel, taste, smell? It's all the senses?
It's kind of hard to answer. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And I
Depends
don't
on
know
them,
what
right?
the variable is. I don't know if it's the connection that you make. I don't know if it's their strength. I don't know how to answer that one. But sometimes, yes, I can be, hey, brother, welcome, Gene. Sometimes I can be making a connection and I can smell flowers, or I smell their cologne, or, just like I made a connection one time. But I had done a podcast for several years. Hey, Shayla. Hey, Banchero. But I had done a podcast for many years, and I got to interview Lyle and Tana Lotz from Twisted Paranormal Society, and I had never met them. And then finally I run into them at a place called Boxwood Inn. They're doing a Paracon. And
Which
he
is
says,
where?
well, listen,
Sorry.
Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay.
They don't even do paranormal anymore. It's under new ownership. Wonderful location, though. Absolutely gorgeous, historic location. They still do dinners and banquets and weddings and things like that. But he says, hey, listen, we got an investigation coming up in a couple of weeks. Why don't you join us? And I just went, wait. And I start rambling all these things off to him. And I said, all right. So I get to the top of the steps, and off to my left, the room that I walk in there, the old man that charges at me from the fireplace across the room, he's a drunk. He just reeks of liquor. And Lyle's got this stupefied look on his face, and I'm walking through the whole location and everything, and he's like, okay, you have to join us. You need to come down and just validate what you just did.
Do you like the remote viewing part? The remote viewing, I love when they do give me the remote viewing. But it's creepy in all the best ways.
I think it's fascinating as hell, because sometimes you actually get a hands-on, like I did one, well, Howie can vouch for this. I did one for a place called Del Nemus Plantation for Howie and Ryan. This is years ago. And I told them that I kind of have my own personal guide. I don't know what you call him. He's the black gentleman of the house, and his name is Washington, he tells me. And he gave me kind of a guided tour of the whole property. And they're like, yeah, we've investigated there before, and we do have a EVP. He says his name is Washington. Now, okay. So, but sometimes you just kind of see everything, but you don't get interaction. It's like your energy is there, but you don't get interaction.
And it's weird because you're involved in receiving and sharing, but it very much feels like it's from here coming through. Mm-hmm. We are removed from it and it comes through. I try to make sure remote viewing comes through in every session, because to me that's very evidential for a client to know if they're hanging out with them and where they're hanging out, right? Like that remote viewing I enjoy doing. Howie is for everybody that's just joining in or listening, however you are with us, is the director of the Rift Nation Network, the Orion Effect, which I was just on as well too for their New Year's specials. So thanks, Howie, for chiming in and sharing us out. Ryan is encouraging you to share about North Dakota.
I saw that. And that was, I think,
for somebody who's at work, I appreciate you still chiming in.
So I think the North Dakota story is the one that kind of blew Ryan away the most. He had a lady that reached out to him from his podcast and says, hey, I've got a friend that has issues. She's in North Dakota. Do you think you can get her some help? And Ryan's like, I don't know anybody in North Dakota, but I've got a friend that might be able to do something. So he reached out to me, and I said, well, yeah, we'll get together. Come over Saturday night. We'll sit around the fire pit and we'll see what happens.
Right.
So we call this lady up, and I gave her a guided walking tour through her home. I tell her who I encounter, where he's at. I called out that her child is on the spectrum. I tell her about the tall figure, who he is that is scaring the hell out of her child in his bedroom. And I give her the name, and it turns out it's her father. And then I even went so far as to tell her, I'm thinking your house is probably around the 5,000 square foot mark. And all the way through, she's going, how the hell do you know any of this? Well, I guess a couple of weeks later, or a few months later, they reached back out to Ryan, the friend did that originated the conversation, and says, I don't know how your friend knew any of that, but he has totally freaked out my friend. Like, how did he know so much about her house?
Yeah. And the thing is, we
"Just what
don't
he
know.
does."
We're just shared.
Yeah, it was just given to me. I could see it visually. I could walk through it.
And the thing is convincing people that we're not sneaking in when we're not supposed to.
Yeah, well, I mean, that one was very easy.
And moral
yeah. Oh, yeah,
law.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not looking in the shower when you're in there scrubbing up and hanging out with your rubber ducky. I promise I'm not there.
I'm like, I got my own shite to do.
Yeah.
I don't need to be checking in on your stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Just some of what you can see. Like, I had friends that are in Northern Virginia, so they're like an hour and a half north, and I just happened to be on the phone with her.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, I start getting the flash images. And I said, Lori, do me a huge favor. Right now, I need you to secure your firearm, and I need you to go out the back door. And at the 11 o'clock position, you're going to see a very bright light above the trees. There's a very large tree back there that you need to make sure that your family is safe right now. She's like, well, I don't think there's any trees back there. They just did some clearing for a road widening. I said, Lori, just do what I'm telling you to do, please. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so she grabs her sidearm, hung up with me, grabbed her sidearm, went out the back, and there was a bright light up there. It's a helicopter with a searchlight on from local law enforcement looking for an armed robbery suspect. They had done some road widening, but they left one large tree back that way. I told her, I see a red shirt. I'm not sure, but there is definite danger. You need to secure your family. Well, her wife was walking their dogs, and her wife's wearing a red shirt. So when she come back in, she's like, okay. She called me back and she's like, okay, I don't know what the hell you just did, but you probably just saved my wife's life. And I went, I didn't do anything but give you what I was given.
Yes, being of service.
Yeah, that's all it boils down to is I gave you what I was given. Now, be it right, be it wrong, I'm not going to sit back and go, well, if I'm wrong. In a situation like that, Spirit says, this is what you have to do. I'm just going to listen and tell them. It's one of those where if I'm wrong, hey, I'm sorry, I got you all excited. But this is what Spirit led me to yell at you. That was secure your firearm right now and go take care of business.
And it's hard to explain to people. It's like John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt in your head. It just natters till you give it. Yeah. It's loud and there. And when it's done, when you've given it, it's peaceful in your head because you've done what you've needed to do.
Yeah, I've done some connections where I absolutely just laugh at the end of it. Most of them, when Spirit's done talking to us, it's thank you or goodbye or till next time or whatever. I did one so when I first started focusing and doing them, and I would do connections on the regular, my wife thought I had finally flipped my Gordon. Flipped in the last marble. We're ready for the funny farm. And she come home one night and I'm sitting at the dining table. I got the laptop out and I got headphones on. I'm listening to evidence and audio from the investigation. And she put a Post-it note down. So I stop and I look at what, and all I hear is this deep belly laugh. Okay, we're obviously going to connect. So I paused everything, took the headphones off, and I just smiled and said, okay, what about him? She's like, well, tell me about him. So I start rattling off this long list of things. What his house looked like, where his house was, what his concerns were, what his interests were, et cetera, et cetera. And when we got done, instead of the usual, hi, he turned around and I see him walking away and just waves goodbye over his shoulder, like, peace out, bro, we're done. I just kind of laughed and I said, all right, apparently we're done with this one. He's left. And I said, so who was he? She's like, you don't know him. You've never met him. I said, well, I'm well aware of that fact, but who the hell was he? Because he seems like a great guy. She's like, that's my boss's dad. He passed away about 6 months ago, and you never met him. It was just funny. And then it was probably 3 or 4 nights later. I'm sitting in the living room watching TV with my wife, and all I hear is this deep belly laugh again. And I'm like, okay, he's back. What the hell are we doing now? And I hear, tell her to look in the drawer to the right of her washer and she'll find the jewelry. I don't know what he's talking about. So I tell my wife, I said, you need to call Rox, tell her to look in this drawer. That's where her jewelry is at. What? I don't know. Just play along. So she calls Roxanne, puts her on speakerphone. And Roxanne, you have to understand Roxanne, she's very high strung. She's like, well, I don't know why that jewelry would be there. I was gone all last week on that business trip, and blah, blah, blah. In hopes, like, just look in the drawer. Well, there's no reason they'd be. What the hell? Why are they in this drawer? And all I can hear is him just deep belly laugh, going, I just watch after you, kid. And but it was at that point my wife was like, okay, I know you're not just nuts now.
So I'm going to do this question from Contessa, and then I have a question about that, about the not being nuts. I have a question about that. So Contessa is just asking, Contessa, thanks for always showing up and being a part of Spirit Switchboard. She's sharing just a question. What if you are gifted and you have messages come through, but you don't want to be of service per se? Will or does that affect you in any way?
I think that depends on the spirit. If spirit is persistent enough, you will eventually relinquish and give up the message that they want you to pass along. Prime example, I stopped in a Shell station about 2 a.m. I was traveling from New York to see my daughter back to Virginia here. It's 10 hours on the road. I was exhausted, out of coffee, fuel lights on, cigarettes are gone. As soon as I walked into this Shell station, I looked over and I acknowledged the cashier, and I can see this little older woman behind him. Oh. And I know she's not living. And I'm like, oh, shit, please don't let her know. Please don't. Oh, she knows. And you get this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, this woman chased me all around that gas station, telling me this is the only chance. You have to tell him this. You have to tell him these things. You're my only chance to tell him these things. You have to tell him. So finally I relinquished. And as we're standing at the cashier, she's got this little backhand. You have to tell him. Fine. So I rattle off all these things that she's telling me. And of course his jaw's hanging open. And he's like, I've seen this stuff on TV, but I didn't think you people were real. And I said, well, your grandma's very persistent. So,
right.
There are times that you don't have to share what spirit gives you, but there are times where, whether you want to or not, you're going to end up doing it because they're going to nag you to no end. Even if it's not at that location, they will show up elsewhere and tell you, I asked you, you have to go tell them.
And there's layered answers to that too, right? That sometimes the spirit will seek the next bright light. If you're not going to pay attention, they're going to head to the next bright light. For some people, and we all, if you've been following the show, then you know that my sister's been on, and I love my sister and drag her into all kinds of situations that she wouldn't necessarily volunteer to be a part of. And she's extra sensitive as well too. But I feel that part of my sister's physical health issues are that pushing back against spirit and not wanting to do it. Like her physical body is taking a toll because she's hanging on to energies and not releasing them, not like she's hanging on to them. So I think, it's all a part of it. It's layered for sure. But when they're insistent like that, it's that John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt in your head. Like,
Yeah.
and they
It
matter
just doesn't
at
go,
you.
it's stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I see Jennifer's question. Will spirit share negative things? Yes. Part of what made my wife think maybe I had lost my mind when I started just accepting it and openly sharing and doing connections and readings for people, I was getting information on sexual molestation victims, who it was, connection from them. Hey, your uncle so-and-so wants me to tell you that he is so sorry. Now, this is up to you whether you accept his apology or not, but he is on that side and he is asking me to apologize to you for what he did. So they will share negative things with you, but I think that's a matter of once you've made the connection with the living, and I usually will ask the living, please take a moment in your head and say, hey, if you want to connect with him, I trust him, you can tell him whatever you want to tell him. Because if I come into your home, you don't know me from Adam, and I start asking you questions about a loved one, you're going to be like, why am I telling you anything? I don't know you. Mm-hmm. But once that loved one that's on this side expresses that to the universe, so to speak, that I give you permission to talk to him, then I'm going to start getting things that you may or may not want me to know. But here's the benefit in that is I know I'm not allowed to share that with anybody else. Mm-hmm. Nobody will ever know what I have been told by spirit about you and your life other than you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a punishment for, so I was talking to Susie and I made a connection for her and I found this out. I don't know if there's a punishment for sharing that, but I also don't want to take the chance. I know the universe can. Yeah, I know the universe can, for lack of better terms, make our life very damn miserable. So I don't want to take the chance that I break a boundary and the universe goes, you get a punishment. So
and defining negative things too, right? The defining of negative things, that's definitely negative, but is it like I don't want them to tell me somebody's about to die and I don't want to know about, impending car accidents. I don't want to, I try to set that boundary with spirit when I'm working as well too. So, what we deem as negative.
Well, I think
Lorraine is just asking, keeping people's secrets must feel like a burden for you.
Sometimes, but I will
it's a big cry sometimes.
Oh yeah, a lot of cry. So most, like some of the most amazing ones, like some of the stories that I've shared so far, they've just been, beautiful stories, and they're very emotion provoking, and they're the ones that I remember. Most connections that I make for folks, I go to the ground afterwards. I do a little bit of grounding session and I remove that because it's not my energy, it's not my burden, and it's not my memory. So I don't want it. I got enough crap.
But we still are human. We're still human and have emotions. So, we still can feel emotionally, like we have to emotionally process that, and that can be heavy as well too, right?
Yeah, we have to learn to compartmentalize that. This is my emotions. These are their emotions. I don't feel this full time. I had a woman reach out to me. I had done a podcast from Grave Talks nearly 2 years ago. And about 3 months ago, this lady reached out to me on Facebook Messenger, and she's like, "Are you the Dennis Estlock that did the podcast Grave Talks a couple of years ago?" One and the same. I'm the only one with that name. I can assure you, if there is an Estlock with my spelling in this country, I'm related. And she's like, "Okay, well, can you make a connection for me?" And instantly, I've got a small child that came through, and I'm sitting on the back porch at this point. I'm crying like a little boy, just bawling. My wife steps out the door and she goes, "What is wrong with you?" And I just showed her the phone where I'm doing this connection. And she's like, "Bye." And she left. But this woman had made the decision to forego the full pregnancy, terminate it. And what I got from the little boy, the statement that hit me like a truck was, "I felt more love in that one decision than I would have felt in an entire lifetime of existing."
Mm-hmm.
And then he shows me a beautiful field and fishing poles. And he goes, "I get to go fishing with Papa all the time now." Wonderful. So, but I had to take that energy initially, and then I went and gave it back to Mother Earth. But that emotional train wreck that you become for that brief period of time is very burdensome.
Yeah.
Like I said, that one hit me like a train. But then,
you say it much more gracefully. I tell people when I'm done doing sessions, I am like a mashup of Al Bundy and Homer Simpson. I am like truly on the couch, and I just need space to process. And I do my grounding, have a shower, cuddle with the dogs, and then I'm great the next day.
Yeah, I am trying to be so politically correct, but typically I would say I am a cluster of emotion, and I'm a train wreck for a little while afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important. I think it's important for people to understand that, when you are working from a heart-centered place, being of service, authentically doing what we are meant to do with no ego, that's what happens. That's part of the process. Like, it's part of you go deep. It's not surface healing stuff. It's deep stuff that we tap into, and it's the raw places that we hit, and it's powerful. So that being said, and the powerful, yes, Contessa, powerful. And hello, Jeff. And there was someone here that chimed in. Oh, I think it's Kathy from Australia. She's here from Australia. She said hello as well too. So just like I was a small kiddo when I started connecting with spirit, you were as well too. When did that shift out of it being who you are to something that you do?
It shifted.
Well, did you always? Yeah. Well, I mean, you do the tours and you're doing readings. Like I did hair. I was a hairstylist for the longest time, and this was kind of in the background. My kids, it was always in the background in our home, because my kids were seeing things as well too. So it was normal in our house for it to be happening and to talk about. But as a career or as a path, I've been doing it full time for 18 years now. And there were some monumental things that happened where it shifted, where it was a full time or more public and less quiet, I suppose. So that not I guess shifted, but I guess more.
Right. I still don't do it full time. It just, if somebody reaches out and spirit cares to share with me, or if spirit reaches out, grabs me and goes, "You will tell," then I kind of don't have an option. But I mean, by trade, I'm a contractor, but I'm doing a full bath remodel right now. Fortunately, this is one of the quieter homes. There are some that I've worked in that are not so quiet.
I bet.
But I could not be like yourself, a hairdresser, and do
Well, it was a lot.
or have this kid. Oh no.
It was a lot.
As soon as I touch them and all their loved ones step around, going, she can, tell her. Oh no.
I'm Canadian Tire going, I'm just here for my bucket. I'm just here to buy my bucket.
End of the day, I would have just looked like an absolute crackhead going.
So Sandy, I just want to clarify to make sure that Dennis approaches this question in the way that you're meaning it. What if someone wants to hold on? Are you asking like spirit wants to hold on? Person wants to hang on to the person in spirit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or does she mean what if the living wants to hold on to the deceased
to the spirit?
Or the soon to deceased? I'm not real sure exactly what direction she wants me to go with the answer on that.
Spirit wants to hold on, she's saying.
Yeah. Spirit wants to hold on to their loved one or to us. Because once I finish a connection, I generally will tell Spirit that we are done and ask them to move on. I don't need any more following me around. I have been told that I have more of my deceased family around me than living family. So, yeah, I ask them to move on, and I don't allow them to hold on to me. I'm done with them at that point. Now, if they have something further that they choose to come back, then I will let that happen. But for me, it's kind of the same as hanging up the phone. We're done with this conversation. Have a great day.
Yeah. When spirit that is crossed over, that's choosing to come forward to share a message, and a spirit that is earthbound that has not crossed over, do they feel different for you when you're tapping into them energetically?
Yes. The ones that have crossed and have chosen to come back to this side, I don't feel as much of the emotional connection. The ones that are still earthbound that haven't left, I pick up on their emotions. I pick up on bodily pains. Generally, I can tell you how the person in that location passed away because I will start to feel the pains. I'll go into a room and I'm like, holy shit. All right, so this one, after the 40 packs of cigarettes a day, and that's Diet Coke. And I'm like, okay, that's how this one passed. So they do feel differently. But the ones that have crossed and come back, when they make a connection and I make the connection to the loved one that they want the message to go to, think about the old 1940s, 1950s switchboard operator where you're plugging in and you're going, switchboard.
My background.
Yeah. That's us right in the middle. And we're holding both plugs going, oh, this one sucks. This is going right through me and I got to take all of this. Yeah. So that, they have a completely different feel. Yeah. I don't feel the pains usually from the ones that have crossed and come through to make the connection. Now, the burn victim, he chose to show me that.
Yeah, I have a structure and I want them to show me like this, and this. And I want it to unfold very clearly in this way. And we're going to end this way. If you're going to, I'm willing, but this is how we're going to roll. And yeah, if they're earthbound, it feels like slogging through mud. It feels like walking through mud with your boots on. And then when they are crossed over, it's just fast, really fast.
It's little flash images.
Yes. A lot of that.
It's like watching, what was the old carousel thing with the slides in it? Click, click. And meanwhile, you're going, what the hell is that one?
And is it your inside ear, not outside ear? Like, Yeah.
It's all in
When it's
there.
outside ear, then I get worried. What? There's something extra.
Well, I love when that happens. I was in a house, and I'm getting ready to do a remodel on this house, and the house was built in the 20s. My client's step uncle bought the house, had done a lot of remodels to it, and they were all jacklegs. None of it was accurate. But she's like, so I want to tear out this wall between the kitchen and living room and make this one large open area. Can we do that? And I'm looking at the way the structure is built. And I said, well, I don't think this is a supporting wall or load-bearing wall. But do you mind if I take the hammer and knock a hole in it so I can see what the structure is, so I have an idea of how I have to go about doing this? But yeah, I don't care. It's going out anyway, whether you do it or I hire somebody else.
Right.
So she happened to have some tools there, and I picked up a 3-pound sledgehammer and I knock a hole through this wall. And right here behind my ear, not in my head, not like normal, this was an audible voice right behind me. What the F are you doing? I'd be like, oh crap, not one of these jobs. And I went, that job actually just went off the rails. The electrical that he had done, he had built 4 additions to this home. And the electrical was so jacklegged, I was terrified the house was going to burn down. So finally I approached her and I said, all right, I have found enough issues in the electrical that we have 2 options. I'm either going to walk away from this contract, or we're going to gut the full house and I'm going to rewire the entire house. That's our 2 options. And she's like, well, you are not walking away, so you are going to gut the entire house. Roger that. Well,
you and your bestie in spirit.
How? It became the running joke from time to time. I would send her a text that just says, damn it, Hal. Because something would happen on the job. Like there was one afternoon, I am looking high and low for my tape measure. It has just vanished. And out of nowhere, I hear this voice says, check the back bathroom. You better not be screwing with my tools, Hal. I go to the back bathroom that I have not set foot in. And sure enough, right on the vanity sits my tape measure. And I came back out and I sat down and I said, all right, here are the rules.
Yeah.
I'm tearing your house up to make it better for your niece. You leave me the hell alone. You can watch. You can participate. If I forget a number on a measurement, you can call it out and remind me. But you leave my tools alone. You can't do this.
Yeah.
So that job got to be quite comical by the time all was said and done. There was a lot of text that said, damn it, Hal.
So funny, eh? A house that the kids and I lived in, the fellow in spirit kept showing up in the bathroom all the time because he had made all the cupboards in the bathroom. He showed me all kinds of stuff. They had a dead cat that would wander around and bug all of us in the middle of the night, this cat. And I had to do this group event somewhere in the city, and I knew it felt heavy, so I took a cab. I took a cab to the venue, to this house, and I was going to take a cab home. And the cab driver, it turns out that was her childhood, her sister's father-in-law's house, and so her sister, the cab driver's sister's father-in-law. And I'm like, is this how he died? And did he do this? And was there a cat that was right around? And so like we were able to make all of these connections. But when you start doing renovations, it stirs everything up.
Oh, they get angry. And it's rather comical. I did a full renovation on a cemetery office building. And
I love cemeteries.
This one was absolutely gorgeous. But I knew from day one, I've got spirit here. And I tried to express to them that you have to leave my staff alone. You can't bother my help. I'm outside smoking a cigarette one night, and we had been there for, 3 weeks. This is like several thousand square feet. All of it is wallpapered. None of it is done right. So as we're peeling the wallpaper, we're damaging the drywall. So we have to skim coat everything. And I'm standing outside smoking a cigarette. one of my employees comes out and he is just pale. And he's like, F this, I am done. I'm done. Just like, send me my last check. I was like, whoa. What's going on? And he's like, well, just go into the room that I'm working in and we'll bring my tools out, but leave the hammer. Where are you leaving your hammer? Just go look. So I go in the room and his mud bucket's sitting there and the trowels and everything are there. And there's a hammer stuck in the wall on the far side. I grab all of his tools and I come back out and I say, why in the hell did you put a hammer through the wall? He goes, that's why I'm quitting, because I didn't touch it.
Wow.
Chucked the hammer.
He's like, where's the video camera then?
Yeah, it was priceless, but he took his tools and left the hammer on the job. He's like, I don't want it.
But those personal experiences are life altering. Like that worker, life altering experience.
Oh, from that point forward, I guarantee you, he will be a believer. But I got some amazing EVPs out of that building. Some funny, some not so funny. I got choked in that building. And at the same instance that I'm being choked, we captured an EVP that says, choke that effer. We're not going to play this game. But that was one of those where I knew they were in that room, but I could not see where. And all of a sudden I feel the pressure on my throat and I started into a coughing fit, and we captured the EVP of choke that effort.
We are going to start talking about the cabin, how I promise you. There was just some like mediumship and remote viewing, and we're leading into the cabin, I promise you.
Yeah, well,
I promise. I
have the perfect segue to get us into the cabin regarding mediumship.
Well, that was, did the cabin on 360 find you, or did you find the cabin?
Ryan and I found each other. And so Ryan's family has owned that cabin. Well, they've owned the log cabin since day one. His grandfather actually built it. July 1978, his grandfather bought the land. The brick rancher was already on the property. But Ryan had told me a story about, as a child, he remembers his father coming home telling him about somebody being murdered in the house. Right? He didn't remember male or female or age or any of that. So we had nothing to go on other than his dad remembered that somebody was murdered in the house.
Can you tell people how big the property is, and that can you tell?
It's substantial. So there's 7.2 acres of battlefield from the battles of Bethesda Church. It has the log cabin that's about, I think it's 21 or 2,300 square feet. And then it has the brick rancher next door that's 1,600 square feet, I think. But it took Ryan nearly a year to talk me into going out there just to check the place out. I'm like, it sits right on the side of a 2-lane highway, 4-lane divided. 55 mile an hour highway out in front of it. I'm thinking to myself, this thing's only like 40 years old, 35 years old at this point. What's going to be there? They don't have any tragedy. I hadn't done research on it. I couldn't, for whatever reason, in my own mind, think this is going to be an active location.
Right? Letting go of assumptions.
Yeah. And I learned a valuable lesson. Howie and his team, All Seeing Paranormal Society, had gone out to do an investigation one night. And Howie literally had to pull his team out. One of the girls, my understanding is, had been scratched. Their medium just got inundated with emotional energy. There was a growl that was heard. Howie was like, I'm going to side on the side of safety and caution, and we're getting the hell out.
Yeah.
And
that's smart, knowing when to tap out. It's smart knowing when to tap out.
It truly is. And I'll give him kudos for that. A lot of teams are like, oh, you're fine. It didn't happen to the leader. So the leader just keeps pushing everybody else. And then all hell breaks loose. But a leader that is smart enough to know when to say when deserves kudos. But Ryan finally gets me to go out there, and he's like, hey, worst case scenario. And at this point, Ryan had just come on as my co-founder for my team, which is Commonwealth Researchers of the Paranormal. And he's like, worst case scenarios, we just use it as a training ground, see who works with who. We can try out new ideas and whatever else. It's just a lab. So I finally relent, and we go out there. Well, we walk through the log cabin, and hey, Lee. And I'm like, the log cabin has some spirits there. It's comforting spirits, kind of. There's a couple upstairs. One is an older man. He's kind of a protective one. There's another one that just wants to be left the hell alone. There's a couple downstairs that just do their own thing. Then we walked in the house next door, the Brick Rancher, and 3 steps in the door, I stopped cold in my tracks. And I just kind of looked around for a minute, and I went, Ryan, there's something in this house that is not human and never has been. This place is effed up. And he's like, really? And I went, dude, there is seriously something that it's not right. So we walk through the house. We get to the basement, and as we're kind of looking around the basement, we hear this disembodied scream that echoed through the house. And, usually if you hear a noise, you look at your teammates around you or whoever's with you, and you go, did you hear that? Oh, no, this one wasn't even that. This was a immediate, what the hell was that? And I mean, it was so loud that we went outside and walked around the building to make sure that there weren't kids on the property. And
wow.
Then as we're out in the front yard, we're kind of like, you do realize that echoed through the house. That was inside with us. And that started this adventure, I believe 8 years ago, with investigating the cabin, the Brick Rancher. At one point, we lost the Brick Rancher. His family's company had leased the Brick Rancher out to an insurance agent. So we lost access to that. So we were like, all right, well, we still have the log cabin and we still have the woods. They've both proven to be active. And then, so the insurance guy, I won't even say the name of his company, he signed a 2-year lease and in 10 months packed his goods and left. Bye. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even let the property manager know. He just bugged out. And yeah, Lee, it is a little dark in there. And I will give Lee kudos and credit. She is a light worker. I've met Lee several times. And she's been in the cabin several times. So has Mr. Sullivan that just joined us.
So I'm just gonna read it because we do have a lot of audio listeners as well too. So for our audio listeners who aren't able to read the comment, it is from Lee Gurley. Lee is a name in our family structure. My dad, my sister, all Lee's. Lee's a good name, spelled that way too. Leigh, it's lovely. She's just sharing, I've been there a few times and I'm a light worker. It's too dark for me. Much respect for Dennis and Ryan. John Sullivan is popping in as well too, saying hello.
Yeah. So John Sullivan is founder of FPRI, Fredericksburg Paranormal Research Investigators. And he backs us up. He comes along with us on numerous investigations. Anytime that I have, like we do Pamplin Historical Park. It's 424-acre battlefield. We do fundraiser investigations for them. John comes along and joins us and helps out a lot. He's helped out numerous times at the cabin as well. So kudos, John. Thank you so much for all your help, brother. But yeah, the cabin, the Brick Rancher, that was my segue from the mediumship into cabin and Brick Rancher.
Yeah,
and on day one, when you walk in and you feel that energy that you know is not human. Mm-hmm. For those that pick up on energy, I've interacted with human spirits since I was 7. So that's 45 years.
I'm 53. We're just going to say it's all good.
Yeah, I got you by a couple of years. Joanne, no, they're both zone business, so nobody can live in them. But, I've interacted with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of human spirits. And this was an energy that I had never felt before. And I knew exactly what it was. I knew it wasn't right. And it has proven to itself many times that it wants to wreak havoc. But that's its goal. That's its purpose.
So
I see the question.
Yeah, so Sandy is asking a question, and I have a question as well too. So, my question's two parts. So let's ask Sandy's question first. So Sandy is asking, what do you do to try and protect yourself from those kinds of spirits? Do you do any protection ritual? Do you want to keep that private as well too? Do you encourage people to do their own thing if they're coming on the property? People who are doing paranormal investigations and book time on the property, do you give them a bit of a history and then encourage them to do what they do?
I learned when we first started renting the property out, I can tell people to protect themselves. They're going to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I can tell them this is a very evil, dark energy. Hey, Daniel. Daniel is with D&M Paranormal. Did a wonderful YouTube for the cabin. Great tour. Go check them out. But I can tell them all day long, protect yourself. Wear a cross. I don't truly know what it will take for this person or that person to protect themselves. So I just tell them, pay attention to your own emotions and those around you. You know them far better than we do. If you turn and look at your friend beside you and go, man, I think that Dennis guy's really weird, and they turn and look at you and go, I'll eat your soul. You might want to get him out for a minute. There might be a problem.
I'm laughing and I shouldn't, because I know that kind of stuff can happen. Where
and there's really nothing I can, I don't know what's going to work for anybody in this chat as far as them to protect themselves. Yeah. So,
and it is an individual.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah.
Michelle DeRoche is our network manager. She is a dear friend and colleague, and who pulled me into the UPRN family. And it's really interesting, Michelle, I don't know if you can see in the chat, but my sweet friend James reminded me that it was station ID time, and you popped in right as he's saying that I needed to do our station ID. So thank you for showing up and saying hi. And I'll do the station ID before we go any further. So if you are joining us now, thank you for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard, and I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. If you are enjoying this show and all of the other shows, the Outer Realm Radio with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, please head to the UPRN website, uprntalkradio.com. Follow them on all of their social medias. We appreciate you, and we are grateful for all of the support that you give us. There was a follow-up. Lorraine, my friend Lorraine, who's in Napanee, Ontario, outside of Kingston, she's saying, sorry, I might have missed it, but do you know who the entity is? And is it a who? Is it a who?
We have been given countless names, all of which, for lack of better terms, I think are BS. If I want to intimidate you, I'm going to make myself as big and bad. I'm going to say the baddest name you can think of. And I think that's what this entity has done. We've got everything from Beelzebub, I'm Satan, the Dark One, all of these crazy responses. I do not know specifically which entity it is, but I have my suspicion, but I can't get it to give it to me. So there's a theory that once a darker entity gives you its name, you have now got power over it. But I don't want to give it the credit, and I don't truly believe that it is a demonic. I think it is an elemental. So given the history on the land, I know that European settlers were in that area about 1630, and it was primarily Powhatan Nation land.
Right.
So I believe that as the settlers were pushing the Powhatan Nation off the property, they left something behind. Powhatan Nation, there are stories of a entity that they conjured called a Pukwudgie, and it was an elemental spirit. At the beginning of the existence of this Pukwudgie, the elemental, it was there to help with good health, crop growth, all of these things, just to help the tribe that conjured it. And then they started using it to be harmful towards others, the settlers, other tribes that were moving in, all of those things. So then Pukwudgie turned against them. So I think this little elemental critter is a no-name. It definitely is not human. We have a drawing that was given to us by a young lady that claims she saw it. Then we have a thermal image that we got 6 weeks after the drawing was given to us, and they look a lot alike.
That's fascinating.
So I
love when that stuff happens. I'm love it.
Try this. And I'm going to try to put this picture up to my camera here. Let's see if you can get it. And I didn't think to send these to you. I really should have, but
we can post them on social media afterwards as well too, as a follow-up if you want to do that.
I'm a little bit of a slacker, so let's see how this works. So this is the drawing that was given to us. She claims she drew it that way because it looked like feathers or scales, wasn't smooth like skin. But
Michelle, if you are watching and if you've got something that can chime in, I'm open because you are so knowledgeable with all of this stuff too.
But so I'm going to point out. Let's see if I can do this from the backside.
Yeah.
Like the little tufts coming off the back of the head.
Yeah.
The big eyes and the big nose. So this is the drawing that the young lady gave us. Ryan actually escorted that young lady out of the house because she was so shook up. She was literally just standing there shaking and had tears running down her face saying, "It's just staring at me. Don't you see it?"
This is in the rancher house.
This is in the basement of the rancher. So Ryan's like, "I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what because I didn't see anything." So I get called to come deal with her. She's sitting on the steps of the log cabin at this point with her knees drawn up to her chest, just shaking. So I took her off to the side. I did a cleansing and blessing with her in a prayer session, grounding. And then I took her back in to reclaim her energy. But about 6 weeks later, we had a team that brings in the FLIR that plugs into the bottom of the phone for thermal. And this is the thermal capture that they pulled.
Bring it down just a wee bit. There you go.
So this little guy right here is what we're looking at.
Yeah. And
I'm going to double tap on that and bring him on screen. I got to turn around. I can't do this backwards. So there's the thermal that was given to us.
Interesting.
And I have no idea what it is. And like I said, I think it is an elemental. In questioning in EVP sessions, I asked, well, let me give you some history on the Brick Rancher. So we do know that it was existing in 1978 when Mr. Jones bought the property. Hey, Emily. But we don't know when it was built. What we do know is that in 1979, there was a family living there as Timmons, and it was Mr. and Mrs. Elliott, 17-year-old Randy Lynn Elliott, and 12-year-old Melissa Carol Elliott. Well, on the morning of Friday, October 4th, 1979, between 7:30 a.m. when Mom and Dad left for work and 10:30 a.m., he had raped and murdered his 12-year-old half-sister, put two .38 caliber rounds in her chest, threw her body out her own bedroom window, and was seen by workers carrying something out into the woods. That when they hollered, "Hey, what are you doing?" he dropped what he was carrying into a refrigerator box and then ran off through the fields. When they went to move the box so they could carry on, we think they were bush hogging to clear an area, but they went to move the box and found her partially clothed body. So, of course, authorities are notified. They're on the scene. I've interviewed the deputies that were on scene that day. So I know how the scene was. I know exactly where her body was and all of these things. But in doing EVP sessions, I've asked the question, are you the dark energy that caused Randy to rape and murder his own half-sister? And the voice that responded, a Class A EVP, is a deep, gruff voice and says, yes. And it carries that S like that. That's not a typical EVP. To back that up and substantiate that one, Twisted Paranormal Society has a Paraflix series called The Twisted Realm. And they filmed an episode at the cabin while they're in the woods, or in the basement, rather. I'm sorry. They were in the basement. Tana, who was co-founder of Twisted Paranormal, asked the question, why? Why did you cause Randy to harm his sister? And that same deep, gruff voice replied with the violence, and then stressed that S sound on the end of it, just like it did with my yes.
So that was
something claiming.
Exact. So that was a question, that they feed those sort of different elementals or different heavier, lower energies feed off of the energy that they feed off of it and until they can oppress and take over, right?
Right. And that now I've spoken with one of Melissa's classmates that was supposed to have a sleepover that Friday night that Melissa was murdered. This young lady was supposed to have a sleepover that night. And she said that in the months leading up to this incident, Randy had been spending more and more time in the basement and would get mad and start fights with his mother when she would call him upstairs for dinner. Kim Sage says that I limit my time in Brick Rancher as well. And a lot of us do, simply because it does get very overwhelming. The whole property itself is just very strange.
Joanna's asking, do elementals have language?
I will have to say yes, because of the responses that we've gotten. I just shared the responses of EVPs that we've gotten. It uses verbals, but at the same time, if we go by one of the theories in the paranormal, that side has access to the Akashic records, they can speak whatever language you need them to for them to carry on conversation. So yeah, I would say an elemental does have language. It does have the ability to speak with us and interact with us. And last night is a perfect example. I asked the question, and I've got general public was there with us. I do Thursday thrillers. So first and third Thursday of every month, we go from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I give a brief history on the property, and then we investigate for a while. We were in the basement last night, and I asked the question while running a recorder, does it piss you off when I come down here? And there's a voice on the recorder that says, yes, it does. Hi, I'm here. You can be pissed, but I'm here.
So there's so many layers to that property itself that
Oh yeah.
different paranormal groups, visitors, they're all bringing their own energies as well too, their own people in spirit if they're not on top of spiritual hygiene and doing those sorts of things. So it has opportunity, if it wants to feed off of all of that. Could it be a mimic as well too? Like, could it be just like if it's pretending to be something?
I think it could. I don't know off the top of my head if we've had reports of doppelgangers on property.
Yeah.
But I know with the number of spirits that we've interacted with in that house, I don't know that this thing isn't one of them from time to time.
So Woods Cabin, the Brick Rancher, does that entity stay kind of localized in that spot, or do the spirits move around on the property in between buildings? Does it show up if you're doing an EVP in the cabin, something that's normally from the Brick Rancher show up on an EVP in the cabin, or vice versa?
I honestly cannot answer that.
Have you guys done Estes method in each building at the same time?
That I'm not sure of. I know we've done 2 locations in the same building in the Rancher, but from building to building, I don't believe it is done. That's kind of a cool idea.
Even if it was like, but a walkie-talkie and asking the questions into it.
I know they have done. So Ryan gets together on Tuesdays with a few of the volunteers and team members, and they set up a laptop in the Brick Rancher, and they were doing FaceTime from the log cabin, and they were getting responses.
Yeah, see, that's some wild stuff.
Yeah, it's been
that's wild stuff.
And from time to time, so I now have cameras in the buildings, and from time to time, I will turn the camera on and just do the shave and haircut. Just tap on my phone, and I've heard them on the camera respond to it. I've heard a vocal hello in response to my hello.
Yeah.
We had a photography meetup group came out and did a lot of photography. They did some sort of boudoir shoot, Halloween type thing. Into the night, all that's left is the organizer and one of the models, and they're standing off the steps at the log cabin. And I've done this from day one. Before I close the door, I yell good night, everybody. And as I start to pull the door shut, I yell good night, everybody. And a male voice from inside the log cabin yelled good night. And that's one of those. Did y'all leave somebody inside? Yeah, there wasn't anyone inside.
That was one. So some of the things I wrote down, because the way that my brain works in getting ready, and there's like 5 different comments I want to get to in a second. But so I've got all these 4 pages of notes, and then one of them was like, why is it always the basement? Yeah. Why is it always the basement? Yeah, it's right there.
And in this one, it's a perfectly understandable reason. So there's a sump pit down there that is raw earth at the bottom of the sump pit. Plus there is a foundation expansion for the bedroom to be extended. So that's raw earth. If this thing is an elemental, it moves through the earth is its
so
power,
that's
so to speak.
Yeah, so then that would be my question again. If there's activity in the woods, is it going between the woods and potentially the house and the Brick Rancher? And Ryan is just chiming in. I have heard Howie's voice when he's not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because that stuff will be all tricksy, right? Oh my gosh, I just want to roll back up. Tammy Johnings is asking, what can one do to practice good spiritual hygiene? So what would...
My first recommendation is have a good foundation in your faith. believe, I don't care what you refer to your higher power as. I don't care if it's God, Vishnu, Buddha, the grandmothers, the guardians of the watchtowers. I don't care what your religion is. Have a good, strong faith that they will protect you and that they will stand at your back. So I'm blessed in 5 different religions, 3 different beliefs. I'm also an ordained minister. So I think I have a pretty good grounding in my religious beliefs. I know I am protected quite well. Also, grounding. Take time to go out to Mother Earth. Pull a pant leg up, put a bare knee in the dirt, dig 3, 4 fingers in on one hand, and set the other hand on and ask Mother Earth to take all the negative energy out of my body and replenish me with nothing but positive. And just sit there, relax, let the energy flow. Lightning is the most powerful source of energy that we know of, natural. We can't control it, but we can alter it. And Mother Earth can absorb it with ease. That's why you see lightning rods. That's why you used to see the big spires on tops of barns and things like that. They had a lightning rod that directed that power into the earth because Mother Earth can absorb that much power where we cannot. Those are the main things that I recommend as far as keeping yourself spiritually clean. If you don't maintain good spiritual hygiene, you are going to get your butt ran over like a linebacker has just nailed grading.
Yes. And you just have to not do it once, and you remember every single time after that. You just,
Yes.
it is
Right.
Your one
I gotta
shot
go do
lesson
this.
learned.
I got to go do this. I'll be back.
Yeah, you just, and then for those of us that live in our northern communities where there is no grounding outside in dirt because we're 5 feet of snow, like I have so salt bath, garden, repotted plant. It's still dirt, it's still earth, it's setting that intention. Salt bath as well too. Feet in salt. Sometimes if I do that as I'm working. Those things matter. So Jen is, oh my gosh, hang on folks, there's so much to, I highlighted one that I want to come back
I
to
opened a
at the
can of
end.
worms.
Jen's asking, why do you think a spirit would want to pretend to be another spirit? Yes, only bad shite.
Yes. And again, if an iguana feels threatened, it makes itself much larger. It puffs up. Most animals in wildlife do the same exact thing. Most spirit will do the same thing. If I am just this lowly peon, I'm going to make you think I'm the biggest, baddest thing that you fear the most or should fear the most. I am. Whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and
it's mainly to intimidate
and control. To control the situation, to control the other spirits that are potentially in the house as well too, like having control over those spirits and what's happening. Feed off of a response. If they know that you're scared, that they can get that energy from you and feed off of you. There's all of that as well too. Mish made a great comment when we were talking about the basement and the earth, exposed earth spaces and going back and forth. They're saying closer to source, like a snake in warmer weather. Joanne is asking, has the murdered sister spirit ever been sensed?
Not only sensed, I have a Class A EVP. I had general public with me. We were doing one of our public events, and I've got probably 8 guests sitting in her bedroom with me. And I leaned up against the window sill in her room, voice recorder in hand, and I said, just a basic question on the recorder. Melissa, are you with us, sweetheart? And there was a very sweet young female voice came through plain as day and says, I'm with you.
And they feel different. Like when we're talking about there's potentially, somebody pretending, a spirit pretending, or an energy pretending to be something different. Energetically, that feels different, and it feels off. When it's something like that, you can tell the difference between, most times, sometimes people can't, but if you're working from a good place, you can tell the difference between a girl voice that's just not right and a girl's voice that is the girl.
Yes. And that EVP, I actually played back 3 different times to make sure that I heard what I thought I heard. And then I set the recorder down in the window. I excused myself and I went outside and grounded and cried. When I hear the elemental energy, the darker energy, everything about that voice, I think even if it were to try to disguise its voice, I think it would still carry that gruff tone, simply because it's trying to mask who and what it is. And it can. One of the easiest ways I found to distinguish between when I'm getting a reading, or doing a reading rather, when I hear anything, I listen to see if it's my voice. Because one thing that we have learned is you cannot disguise your own voice to yourself. Tell yourself, I need bread, milk, and eggs. And for the ladies, try to tell yourself that in the man's voice. For the gentleman, try to tell yourself that in the lady's voice. You will know it's you every single time. You cannot disguise your own voice to yourself. There's that clue and that cue as to who's actually responding.
John Sullivan is sharing there has been times we sensed Melissa in her room during investigations. Lee is sharing, I felt a darkness in cabin. Perhaps it does travel between properties. I've also felt small children touching me at the cabin. The back room at the cabin is where I encountered something dark downstairs near the bathroom. Downstairs, folks.
It's not in the basement. The cabin doesn't have a basement. It just has a
main floor and up?
Just level. Yep. Now, that back room where she's referring to, I've had 2 different teams tell me about SLS activity in the closet in that room. And both of them described a small figure and a large figure. So I do know that there are at least a couple of children present in that back room. I had Jake Fife and his dad, which was Fife Paranormal. I believe Dad's name is Chris. He was upstairs in the loft filming downward while Jake was in the main room. And they're doing a Facebook Live. And all of a sudden, Jake's whole face just changes and he looks and he goes, "Holy crap, did you just see that?" It was a little boy standing right there in the foyer in the front door, and he took off that way. And his dad's like, "What are you waiting for? Go." But it's those moments where you just kind of go, "The hell was that?" And it's those fleeting moments that I love to watch people's reactions, and especially that, I don't believe in this stuff. And then something happens and they don't have an option.
Yeah. Life altering. And
yes,
some people aren't ready for it. I always ask people when they come out to events if they've been voluntold or if they've volunteered. Because I just want to know who to watch as the night unfolds, right? Contessa's asking, would that negative energy feel cold?
It does. Very much so. You will definitely, like last night we had, a friend of ours, Ron Wood, owns Booze Paranormal, and he made a sonar device that has like a 6-foot-long LED light wire off of it, and it monitors hot and cold. And last night they made mention of this entity, and that whole thing went instantly blue, telling that the temperature had dropped. And when they asked, "Does it make you mad when Dennis comes here?" it instantly went red from end to end, which was a heat spike, which in a basement, I can't justify a heat spike. The heat wasn't on.
Right.
So that was bizarre. But yes, it does feel cold when that entity is in close proximity to you.
So you guys, Mish and Howie are having this little side conversation about the bathroom, damn bathroom, and Mish is responding dirty work takes place in the bathroom. Howie is commenting that the door had opened up even though he had it locked and he was sitting in there. If you guys, have been listening to the show, if you haven't, just prior to Christmas, I had Erin Taylor on, who has a book out, came out in October, called Unfinished Business, and it is all about haunted bathrooms. So send in your stories of the cabin so she can add it into her next her next book that comes out, because there's a part 1, part 2, which is funny. So
there are so many things. We could have a 6-hour show just on some of the activity that's happened on this property.
Larry's asking a great question too. He's let me just put it up for you. Oh, wrong one. We got damn bathroom again. Can other spirits step in to protect you from elementals or darker spirits that linger in spaces you're in?
Yes. Now, for me, generally, I will ask them to stand down, simply because I don't want them suffering the wrath of whatever the darker entity is. I will take that, and I will take on the darker entity. Anybody that has investigated with me knows if there is a loud noise and you see Dennis running, run the opposite way Dennis is running, because I'm the idiot that's going straight to whatever the problem is. Even if it is... even if you hear, I am Satan, I am here, and you see me running to that, that's a good clue to run the other way. But yeah, spirit can step in and protect you. Generally for me, I ask them, only give me a heads up. And aside from that, stand down and I will take care of it.
That was one of the questions I had wrote down. Do you ever give the spirits permission to tap out for the night? It's like, maybe they feel like, nah, last night's group wore me out. Peace out. Not doing anything tonight.
I have, so since I took over the cabin, from day one, literally, anytime I do public investigations or private residence or anything, I tell spirit that this is on your terms. We're coming into your house.
Agreed.
If you choose, you may interact with us. And I always tell the guests that rule number 1 is you will respect the spirits that are here. If I catch you disrespecting them, I will gladly throw your keister off the property. And we have had to throw people off the property without doubt.
Good for you.
I will not allow anybody to disrespect the spirits, especially at the cabin. So the day I turned 18, I enlisted in the U.S. Army, so I took an oath. Any of the listeners here that have ever joined the military, they did the same exact thing. They wrote a check to this country up to and equal to the value of their own life. That demands respect. So the soldiers, for the most part, that have died on the back portion of the property, which they're not just back in the woods. We have seen them around and at the buildings as well. But they demand that respect. And I demand that you give them that respect. If I catch anybody talking negatively to an innocent 12-year-old girl whose life was snuffed out premature, I am probably going to watch them trip on the way through the doorway a couple of times as I throw them off the property. Yeah. So, but that's rule number 1 is you will respect the spirits here. This is their property. This is their home. I won't come into your home and I won't disrespect you. I don't expect it here. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that I am all powerful or anything like that. But I will do my absolute best to get you blackballed if I catch you being a disrespectful toward to the spirits.
Emily is just backing you up, Dennis, by saying first investigation I ever did at the cabin, Dennis took off running to the woods. 100% accurate. Don't follow Dennis.
We saw something back here. Where the hell's Dennis going?
Yeah.
They said that they thought they had seen a spirit at the back of the woods. They saw a full-bodied apparition that was so solid. A couple of them saw simultaneously. They thought it was somebody coming onto the property. So as soon as they called me, I took off towards that direction.
Sandy's
there was
just
nobody back there.
It's respectful to them, to the spirits, so the spirits respect you for it. One of the questions I had wrote down was attachments to spirits or building relationships with spirits. So again, it would be multi-leveled on a property that's history is also complex, right? In how you're, who's attaching or who's creating relationships, I guess, with spirits within the space.
Yeah, well, I think there is a familiarity that you develop with spirit. For years, I just had the theory of familiarity, but I am convinced that the more I go into the property, the more that Howie goes into the property, the more that Gene goes into the property, those spirits begin to understand who we are and why we're there, and that we're there not to disrespect them, not to harm them, not to push them out, but they begin to develop a trust with us. And, the first time you break that trust, much like with the living, that trust is destroyed. You're not going to get any activity out of them after that point, because now they don't trust you. Yeah. And, I've had countless people ask me, well, why don't you, smudge the whole place and cross them over? There's an issue with that in the fact that if I go to the library and they have taken all the books out of the library, why am I going to go to the library? What can I learn there now? My whole purpose is when this meat suit dies, there's way too much energy that is this character. I'm going somewhere. I want to know where. I want to have a heads up. So when this meat suit dies, I want to know what I have to look forward to. Man's quest from all the way back in caveman days was what happens when you die. We can't find out if we cross them all over. Plus, I'm not God. I can't cross them over. If they choose to go, God and their saints will help them find that direction and find that path. Now, I have been called in on occasion to help cleanse a location. And generally it works. Sometimes it takes several visits. But one of the first things that I do is I ask my saints to bring forth their family and take their loved one home.
Yes.
So can we cross them over? No, but we can ask their family to come forward and take them home.
And the issue is that that's also that's a battlefield. It was a battlefield.
Yeah.
How many thousands of, and again, layered, right? And traumas. And there is counseling for spirits that needs to happen. It's not like we can just have this quick conversation and they'd be ready to go. So it's there's more to it than that. It sounds easy. And I've been to places where it's supposedly cleansed and I'm watching a whole lot of spirits walking around the space. A door may get opened or somebody's brought somebody else that triggered another layer of the property to be opened up. It's complicated.
So now I have a question for you.
Yes.
Off of your left shoulder where the Christmas tree is,
yes.
Who's the little boy that's 5 or 6 that keeps peeking over?
So I've had numerous losses.
Okay.
Numerous losses.
Okay. Well, I'm very sorry for that. But I can tell you he's probably 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. Blonde hair, bangs, hair's down to about here. And he just from time to time looks over like, yeah, shit, she's still at it. I'll just wait. But I've seen him 3 or 4 times, and I keep doing this to go, did I see that? And
So
when you
have you seen me doing this every once in a
couple
while?
of times.
Yeah, that's my.
That's your indicator.
Yep.
Yeah, I just from time to time I see him kind of poke his head out. No, not yet. And by the way, Howie, I did see your comment on the record. Dennis has done an excellent job.
I had it up, and we haven't had a chance.
Thank you so much for that, Howie.
We'll just read it out loud. So Howie is sharing on the record. Dennis has done an excellent job since taking over. Safer, warmer, more welcoming. Truly a change for the best, probably for the property and everybody that's on it. Howie is sharing. I built the trust through the podcast and working with Dennis and Ryan. Lee is sharing Dennis and Ryan. Oh, I may have. There we go. Dennis and Ryan cleansed my home on Civil War battlefield. We still have activity. I think it's soldiers that pass through my home. So again, complicated. Is it residual? Is it, intelligent? It's layered, right?
Yeah. Well, with Lee yesterday, may I share some information on your property? I'll wait for her response in the chat. But we encounter this often in battlefield situations. So thank you, Leah. I appreciate you allowing me to share. So in Lee's case, where she is at was a major thoroughfare for troop movement. So if I cleanse it this week, the troops that were coming the following week are going right through our house. So she's on a thoroughfare, for lack of better terms. So it makes it, I can calm it down, but then the next set of troops.
Oh, I don't know what happened. We just lost sound.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go. That's okay. Now we got you back.
Yeah. Well, if put your hands down, Dennis. So what happened is.
That's okay. Look, this is what I've been doing in order.
So
there you go.
I flip my hands out and I touch the end of the mic, and it muted the mic.
So I'm the same way, but I roll something in my fingers so that I don't. So I stay in one little spot and don't do the same thing.
That's what that's for. I sit and twirl it.
Yes.
And that's why my hands are off camera.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad the old man's not there, Lee. He was for lack of better terms, he was the bit of an asshole. I love this comment that Ryan made. We had a team come down from New Hampshire and left after an hour and a half. Now, this team of 7 drives down 9.5 hours. They paid for the full weekend. They all piled into a Suburban with their luggage for the full weekend and all their gear. I give them the history. I give them a tour. I tell them where to put the keys, make sure the lights are off, doors are locked. Message me when you leave Sunday morning. This is Friday evening. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Hour and a half later, he calls and says, hey, brother, I just want you to know the keys are where you asked. The doors are locked. The lights are off, and we're going home. Is everybody okay? Family emergency? Is somebody hurt? He's like, oh, no. Quote, unquote, we just weren't ready for this shit. Wait, what? What went off the rails so bad in an hour and a half? And he's like, well, keep in mind, we drove 9.5 hours down. My team is more like a family. There wasn't a crossword amongst us the whole time in the vehicle. In the first 30 minutes after you left, I had to step between 2 sets of my investigators because they were ready to beat each other up. While this is going on, I sent my youngest, newest investigator towards the back part of the woods, what we call the way back, because it's way back there. He was going to put some trail cameras out, and he come running back in the door not very long afterwards, and he is pale, and he is just terrified. And he's still carrying my cameras, and I asked him if he's all right. And he goes, yeah, but while Well, I was partway back and I had to relieve myself. I stepped into the tree line to relieve myself, and all of a sudden I found myself surrounded by cloaked, hooded figures. I closed my eyes. I said the Lord's Prayer. They were gone, and I'm back, and you ain't getting cameras out back. I said, okay, well, so this was enough to make you leave? He goes, oh, no, we're not done yet. I mean, what all went wrong? He goes, well, we all decided we will all go together to go place the cameras. We want to see these cloaked, hooded figures. As we get halfway through the side yard, there's a gravel road beside us that's an easement to go to cell towers, several hundred yards behind our neighbor's property. Because we got partway through the yard to that, and we hear a knocking on the window. We turn and look, and lights are on upstairs in the loft, which hadn't worked the entire time we had been running this operation, 6-7 years. The lights are on, and there was a goat man in the window. I'm sorry, there was a what? There was a goat man in the window. I went, what? He's like, are we having a bad connection? I said, I don't know. I think I just had an aneurysm. There's a goat man upstairs. Yes, we all saw it. He goes, but that wasn't the final straw. The final straw was when my best friend of 20 plus years stepped up to me, nose to nose, and I did not recognize the look in his face, or I didn't recognize his eyes. And he's got this evil grin, and he goes, I don't know why. I just want to smash your effing face in right now. Well, it's time to pack up. We're done. Safety over investigation. Safety over evidence. So they packed up and drove 9.5 hours home.
It is not
when you're terrified.
Wow.
Not when you're terrified.
Wow. Okay, so there was a question. I just have to be mindful of our time because we are kind of coming to the end of our time, and we cannot run over. I had highlighted it at the beginning of our conversation, and it's not necessarily about the cabin, but I don't want to leave this person hanging in the. Let's see if I can find it. Leave her hanging when she was asking a question. So it was somebody with a house built in the 1800s. They lifted up their floorboards, found a rosary buried underneath the floorboard. Asking whether... Oh, here we go. Becky. We're renovating our house built in the late 1800s, and in the floorboards we found a rosary. It gives me the creeps for some reason, but I want to get rid of it and not sure I should. Huh. Should I?
So who do you want to take it, Caroline, or do you want me to?
Well, I have always it's there for a reason. You're disturbing it.
Yeah. And my thought is it's a rosary. That means somebody trusted in their higher power for protection. Now, that doesn't mean that they encountered something that they were seeking protection from. That simply means that they wanted protection in general. So I would say leave it.
I do too.
Put it not necessarily back where it was if it's in harm's way or if it's in the way of your progress in your remodel. But I would definitely say leave it on the property and just do a skyward glance and say, thank you for leaving this for me. And thank you for asking protection on this property.
Having the conversation with the people from before. And sometimes that's helpful when you're doing the renovations anyway, right? Like how we're going to coexist on the space.
Yes. So whether you believe in an afterlife or not, what is the harm in doing a little, hey, thanks for looking out for this property. I appreciate it. What did it cost you to honor them in that brief moment? Not a thing. You may feel silly doing it, but at the same time, that spirit that's up there is going, I got you. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost you anything.
So where can people find you?
Facebook is usually the easiest, just Dennis Estlock, as you see it there on the, I don't even know what they call it, the name tag, I guess.
Yep.
That's the easiest way to find me. There is also, so I have two. One is Dennis R. Estlock, and that's for like lifetime friends and family. I don't do any paranormal on that one. I don't do any readings. There will not be a reading done from that one, nor if you're not family or lifetime friend, will you get accepted as a friend. But if you look this name up with no middle initials, send me a friend request. I also have a fan page that you can follow. You can also find us at the Cabin on 360 Facebook page. You can go to thecabinon360.com. It's being worked on right now. I have the website being built. Please don't send me an email going, your website looks horrible. I know. I tried to do it and we've discovered something. I can build wonderful with carpentry. I can't build a website.
We're not meant to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
We're not meant to.
And lastly, you can find my investigative team if you have trouble in your home, business, or whatever. It's Commonwealth Researchers of the Paranormal on Facebook. We'll be glad to come out. We never charge anything. And I do have an announcement, though, regarding the cabin. And I'm excited. I am excited. Since I just took ownership of it, November 1 is when we actually started. There's been talk, you should do a convention. You should do a Paracon. We're going to do a Paracon. We're going to do Cabin Con. So Cabin Con will be May 30th, 31st, and the 1st. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Vendor applications, vendor spaces are only $40. Applications and all of those things, I'm going to try not to have redundancy. So I don't want 20 Reiki masters. I don't want 20 stone vending booths. I'm going to try to give you some exclusivity in your craft or what be it. FPRI, John Sullivan, he has already agreed he is going to grab a table. I will probably have Mr. Banchero from Pamplin Historical Park will set up and let you know how you can book the park. And it was featured on episode 12, third season of Portals to Hell. Jack and Katrina had a wonderful time at Pamplin Park, and it is available for public rental for investigations as well. I also have Haunted Nights Paranormal Events. The Twisted Realm will be joining us for Cabin Con. So watch for those flyers coming out. I'll get them out as fast as I can figure out how to do all of this.
As fast as you can get on Canva and learn it?
Yeah, well, my little dedicated team of volunteers, God bless them, I'm either going to get beat to death by one of them or something. But yeah, it's, well, this looks okay, but can we change that? Can we change? No, go back with it. So yeah, my little dedicated team is, I've got some of the best hearted volunteers going.
So
thank you, Lee.
It means that they're following leadership too, right? What you're giving, you're getting back.
I get a lot of grief, but but I also give it too. Anybody that knows me knows I am a smart ass from the start.
There you go.
But
Howie's offering to help.
lighthearted. Howie, I appreciate it. I've got the flyer virtually done. My next thing is I have to figure out how to do a vendor sign up and registration. My pay portal is not set up yet on the website. That's the part that I'm struggling with. Getting my website up and running and getting the pay portal complete is what's kicking my keister. but hopefully within the next couple of days that will be done.
So, Mish, I'm glad that you asked this question. Did you see this from
Mish? I did. So here's something cool that I'm going to do with the cabin also. So there is very large overhead, monthly overhead that has to be paid. And I'm constantly thinking of ways to get more income into the property because I'm trying to keep my rates as low as possible for team rentals. I mean, Sunday through Friday, they're only $500 for the night, and it's 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. Saturday is only $600, and that's for up to 10 people. So essentially $60 a person. That's dirt cheap for a location like this. But I have cameras that I'm going to install, and then they will be behind a subscribers paywall on YouTube. So you can subscribe to the cameras that are on location. I think in the grand scheme of things, I will probably have 8. That's yet to be set up. It's forthcoming. Everything is forthcoming simply because this is all new.
And work in progress, but it's all exciting stuff. And I love that because that's like boots on the ground, sort of investigating, allowing people to participate in, and just how my brain goes. And I know that we only have like 2 minutes left, so I have to be mindful of that as well too. That if you are poking in and watching, that's an open door as well too. So it comes back to that spiritual hygiene. If you're leaving a door open, you're doing what you need to do, to make sure nothing's coming through and visiting you where you're at.
Yeah, it's
Ryan is Rift now.
Yeah, Ryan has joined the Rift network.
Thank you. Yeah, virtual attendance.
Yeah, there's so many different things that are in the works, in the plans.
It's exciting.
A lot of it depends on finance. I have, at this point, when the credit card companies are calling, going, "What the hell are you doing? Did somebody steal your card? They're all maxed." And I'm going, "No, I bought a business." So we're working through it.
We're just going to put it out to the universe that this is meant to be, and it's all going to unfold with grace and ease, and double every month your income. Just going to double.
I am hoping so.
Yes, we're just going to put it out.
So
anybody that's been listening has a podcast and would like, Dennis, reach out and have him on, help promote and help things get rolling. Thank you very much. So I do need to close up. So thank you everybody that participated in the chat. The comments are going to be here. I am going to try to get those photos. I'll get them from Howie and Dennis and try to upload them on social media for you guys to see those pictures as well too, if it's possible. Thank you so much for your comments, questions, your support. It's very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you guys all have a great week, and we'll see you back here next week at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a blessed week.